Welcome to Casual Politics, Norman Lamont, Lord Lamont. Thank you very much for, this is your second time for Casual Politics, well thank you very much for your time. You've been Chancellor of Exchequer from 1990 to 1993 and a Member of Parliament for 23 years. 25 years.
First mistake.
Yes. My first question, how did you get involved in politics?
I got in politics really through university. When I was at Cambridge in the early 1960s, it was a very political time. It was very political in the university. I was very involved in the Conservative Association. Mind you, I joined other political clubs when I was there, but I was also very active in debating, and there were a lot of people there who went into politics. We really as a group went into politics. All made separate decisions, but as a group there were a lot of us in that generation who went into the House of Commons.
Yes, like Kenneth Clarke, the former Chancellor, and others. And do you think that British politics, is it at its best or worst, bearing in mind that it has become less ideological since you first entered in politics?
Well, I don't think it's either better or worse. It is less ideological, but that is because the ideology of the Conservative Party, well, it's not just of the Conservative Party, but the ideology of the free economy, incentives, limited state, the market, that has become the consensus, became the consensus under Tony Blair. Tony Blair was really created by Mrs. Thatcher. Her 3 victories really changed the Labour Party. She went on winning election after election, and the Labour Party, in the end, came to form a consensus with other parties as to what were the principles that should govern an economy.
And the other day I was interviewing Lord Dennis Healey, and he was saying that politics has become less exciting nowadays than it was back in his days. Do you agree with him?
Not entirely. I have great respect for Lord Healey. He's quite a lot older than I. He looks back further than I, probably with a degree of nostalgia.
Yeah.
But I think it's easy always to think the past was better than the present.
And as your time as Chancellor of Exchequer, what were the upsides and the downsides as being Chancellor?
Well, the upside is the enormous responsibility of the job, the opportunity to steer the economy through a very difficult period. The downside is that many of the right decisions are always very unpopular at the time.
And before going and talk about present, last question about your time of being Chancellor. Why then you didn't resign following Black Wednesday? You waited for a year because Lord Callaghan in 1967 as Chancellor of Exchequer, he just immediately after the devaluation of pound just resigned. So why didn't you do the same thing?
Well, I thought about it very long and hard. First, there's no rule that you resign when a currency is devalued. So Stafford Cripps, the late Chancellor, devalued the pound, I think, in 1948 or 9. He didn't resign. It's not an iron rule that you should do that. Secondly, our membership of the exchange rate mechanism, the decision to join was not taken by me, it was taken by my predecessor, the Prime Minister. All the Cabinet felt that if I resigned, people would point the finger at the Prime Minister who had designed this policy. I had never been very keen on the policy, but I was the person who was responsible for administering it. Thirdly, the Prime Minister wrote to me in writing asking me not to resign. And I complied with his wishes. And frankly, I think it was a very good thing that I did not. It made a lot of criticism of me, but I was able in the year after that to do some very useful things, like introducing the inflation target. I was also able to rebalance the budget and get the finances of the country back in order when they'd got in a bad state as a result of the recession. So I think some of the best things I did were after our exit from the ERM. Of course, the beneficiary of this was not the Conservative Party. The beneficiary were Gordon Brown and Tony Blair, who inherited a golden economy.
And we looked at your time as Chancellor favorably after that you were not Chancellor anymore than when you were. So, and do you think that is the trend in your party that just before general election you pledge, as your party pledge, to not raise, that they rule out to raise VAT as you did in 1992 general election and also 2010 general election, and as you will also do for 2015 general election. So what you did in 2 previous general elections, you said that you wouldn't, but anyway you did it. So do you think that the public, the Conservative voters should trust you this time as well?
Well, we didn't say we wouldn't raise VAT. If you look in my book, which you have a copy of, you will find very precisely what I said. I said we did not anticipate the need to raise VAT. We saw no need at the time, and that was the truth. There was no need at the time as we saw it. I didn't know that the deficit was going to increase as much as it did the following year. That was completely unexpected, and we were forced to do that. But the words were very carefully chosen, and you will find that they've been used many times by Labour and Conservative politicians. We see no need. And that is a form of words which you can say is ambiguous, but is really the politician saying, I can't promise anything for all time.
But in 2010 general election, your party said that they ruled out any rise in
I think you'll find,
VAT.
I'm not sure about that, I think they said they saw no need.
Yes, and even for this general election, so do you think that they
No, but this time they have not said we see no need. They've used a different form of words. They have actually said there will not be an increase in VAT. The Prime Minister said that at Prime Minister's questions.
Well, just a new strategy probably to...
No, I think there is a different phraseology being used with a different meaning.
And now the Tories, they're banking on the economy, and they said that the economy, talking of the president, and they said that the economy is growing. But when we look closer to economy, not everything is amazing. The economy with low wage, low skill, and low productivity, it was not the economy that we were looking forward to it.
Well, not everything is
based
amazing.
on zero contract hours.
Not everything. Only 2% of the workforce are on zero contract hours.
More than 700,000 people.
2% of the labour force are on zero contract hours. When you say everything is not amazing, of course everything is not amazing. Everything is very seldom amazing. But nonetheless, the government inherited a massive economic crisis with a public sector deficit which was proportionately the same as Greece in relation to its economy, i.e. about 11 or 12% of GDP. The government have halved that deficit, and that has been an enormous task, and it has necessitated some very tough, some very unpleasant measures which are bound to be unpopular with the electorate, which nonetheless have been the right thing to do. And it's not been severe cuts in public expenditure. They've been done very gradually, and the result has been that the British economy, in contrast to other economies in G7, and in startling contrast obviously to the Eurozone, the British economy last year grew by 2.8%. Now, of course you can say this or that, productivity has been disappointing, but I think that is nonetheless a very considerable positive record.
But the lowest productivity in the Eurozone.
That is true, and productivity for the longer term must be increased. I think one of the reasons that productivity has been low has been the consequence of people accepting no increases in wages in order to safeguard jobs. And I think praise belongs to the British labour force, who have accepted restraint in order to keep full employment. But this has had the simultaneous effect that actually productivity has been rather flat or disappointing.
And even France has got a stronger productivity than it's got that we got in the UK. And why your party would not announce that they said that there would be 12 billion cut in the welfare state, but they haven't set out that which sectors. So why?
Well, I don't think they've identified them as yet. I mean, the 12 billion is only part of, there would be a larger package of other cuts as well. But, this is one department they have specified out of a wider total. Labour have also said they will cut spending. They haven't identified where.
But is it on this, again, it's going to be on the back of millions of working class people as they did over the past 5 years?
No, I don't think that's a correct characterization of what has happened in the last 5 years. I think that's very misleading.
And why then they haven't ruled out to rise the top rate tax then?
Yes, but the top rate of tax is generating much more revenue. It is a paradox often that with mobile people who have a choice of working all the time here or working abroad or having their earnings classified as British earnings rather than international earnings, it is a paradox that sometimes by having a lower rate you generate more revenue, and actually the top 10% are paying much more tax than before when the rate was higher. So what do you want? Just a high rate for some symbol, or do you want to get more revenue, which actually helps the poorer people in the country?
But poorer people, they pay more taxes through VAT and other tax rises. So you say that now wages are growing faster than the inflation and the economy is growing.
Well,
so
I haven't actually said that.
So then your party. So then you're not leading in the polls then, neck and neck with Labour.
Well, I don't know when this is going to go out. We shall see who's won the election. I slightly suspect, speaking as of today, I slightly suspect that the polls understate Conservative support, but I can't prove that. That's just my hunch. We shall see. I don't know who's going to win the election for sure, but I think the government has a good record and I think it deserves to win the election.
And yesterday, a former Prime Minister, Tony Blair, publicly, he said that the referendum in 2017 just a concession to the Tory party and to maneuver some of the UKIP vote. What do you make of that?
Well, it is the job of the political system to respond to public opinion. And polls show, and the rise of UKIP shows, so it's not just the rise in UKIP, that many people in this country are dissatisfied with the terms of Britain's membership. We have not had a referendum on Britain's membership since the 1970s. Since that time, the whole nature of the European Union has changed very dramatically. Tony Blair promised a referendum on the European Constitution and then did not deliver. So I think the case for having a referendum is overwhelming, and I think this should not be the subject of criticism. This is an example of democracy in action, of actually responding to what a lot of people in public opinion have indicated they want. It doesn't mean that people are going to vote to leave, but a lot of people do want to have a vote on this.
You criticize Tony Blair for not doing a referendum. John Major either, he didn't do it over a Treaty of Maastricht.
Well, he didn't have to, because the promise that John Major made was to have a referendum if we joined the single currency. Well, we never joined the single currency, so how could he hold a referendum?
And what are the major changes in your party since that you left it, in your opinion?
Well, I think the Cameron philosophy has placed more emphasis on issues like the environment. I think there have been obviously great changes in personnel, but I think the essential core of the philosophy is the same.
And he said before the general election, he said that the new government would be the greenest government ever. So has it been so far?
Well, I don't know about the greenest. I think it probably has been the greenest. There seems to be a lot of money spent on windmills. I'm not a great enthusiast actually for renewables myself. I mean, I think we in some ways have a problem with the subsidies. You know, the price of oil falling has meant that a lot of renewables are not economic. They were never economic before, but they're even less economic now. I think there's a bit of a need to get a grip on green energy, I must say. I think the government's policy has modified a little towards renewables, although they're quite keen on things like tidal power and so on. But there's a lot to be done on the energy field.
And Ashgrove polls that is, they show that your party, last question, and that your party will not get a majority at the next general election. So would you like to see another Lib Dem Conservative coalition?
Would I like to
see another Lib Dem Conservative coalition?
I would obviously, it won't surprise you, prefer an overall Conservative majority, but I would be quite happy to see the Conservatives govern either with the Liberals or with the Liberals plus some other minor party if that is necessary. We shall see. It's up to the wisdom of the electorate. I just hope they're truly wise.
Absolutely. Right, Lord Lamont, we shall see.
Thank you.
Thank you very much for your time. Great pleasure.